rat poisons in the long term don't actually work. You don't get rid of rodents. They're still everywhere. Anytime you start to put a poison out, you are putting at risk the natural predators of the rats. The minute you take the predator out of the ecosystem, what you're actually doing is favoring rodents, because now they don't even have a natural control measure that's there anymore. They're hunting more rodents during breeding season. They're taking them back to the nest. They're feeding the young. So it's not just adult owls that we've lost. We lose youngsters too, because the parents have fed them. The knock-on effects, again, are just so awful in an ecosystem.
Few animals inspire as much fascination and sometimes fear as birds of prey. Eagles, hawks, and owls are powerful predators that have lived in these landscapes long before our suburbs, roads, and backyard chickens arrived. But when a bird of prey interacts with someone's pet or poultry, the reaction is often immediate and emotional. People want to know, why is this happening? Are these birds targeting our animals, and how can we live alongside them safely? Today I'm speaking with Tammy, a raptor specialist working with FreeMe Wildlife. Her work focuses on rescuing, rehabilitating, and releasing birds of prey, including the crowned eagles and owls, while also helping the public understand the behavior of these remarkable predators. In this conversation, we explore how raptors actually hunt, how they're sometimes blamed for attacks they didn't commit, and the impact of poisoning on owl populations, and what practical steps people can take to live more harmoniously alongside these birds. Because understanding these animals is often the first step to protecting them. Welcome, Tammy. Welcome to the Paws and Effect podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a lot of fun to be here.
So I had the privilege of talking to your colleague, Wade, and we spoke about FreeMe and the just general picture of what you do. But I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you today about birds of prey, in particular, the conflict between household pets, maybe some backyard chickens, and these birds of prey. A lot of misinformation is out there. I'm part of a chicken group, so I know. And every week, honestly, there'll be some comment on the group. Some birds taking my chicken, and this has got to be stopped. What can I do? And the comments are completely divided, because some people are going, this is nature. You can't do anything. Do not try. And others are going, here are some solutions, which are actually awful. Is this the kind of thing that you're dealing with in the field? What kind of cases are you seeing that are impacting you and your work?
So absolutely, FreeMe Wildlife deals with human-wildlife conflict. That's the arena we work in. And the scenario that you're describing is all too familiar. We get it all the time. Obviously, birds of prey is my area of specialty, so I've had this for years and years and years. It's nice to know that there are people who do sort of have an appreciation for nature. And we can also understand that you have people that are very attached to their pets or domestic animals and get very upset when something happens to them. So walking this line where you're trying to remain sort of not too heavy-sided either way can be a bit of a challenging thing to navigate at times. But the people who remark that, we're living in nature, we are part of nature, we can't remove ourselves from the situation, I think are the people who've sort of got a more grounded perspective. And I think also understanding that our natural world is actually shrinking. I mean, we've lost in the last 50 years about 80% of the Earth's biodiversity. So human-wildlife conflict is actually increasing. And if we don't start to see the value in what we have as far as nature goes, we're going to lose it. And you can have all the chickens, dogs, and cats in the world, but what you will lose in wild species, you can never get back again, because extinction is final. So to try and find a way to go forward where we can all live in harmony is actually the challenge. But at the same time, it is possible, but it requires quite a lot more effort from our side as people to be able to say, right, I need to have a balanced perspective, and wildlife, these wild birds of prey, they're also just trying to survive out there. And I need to just think about what they are going through and understand the difficulties they're facing. And actually that a lot of them are endangered.
So before we go into what's happening and why, and I'm going to talk from my own experience. I need to let the listeners know that obviously I qualified in the UK, and so being back in South Africa, I wasn't that familiar with birds of prey. And initially, having backyard chickens, I wasn't aware of which birds of prey were going to be a risk to these chickens. So, the yellow-billed kites are in town at the moment, and it's wonderful, and I'm going to miss them when they go. But there is a lot of misinformation as to which of these raptors and birds of prey are actually impacting our pets, and why. Can you take us through?
Yes, you absolutely spot on there, because not every bird of prey is a threat to pets or livestock. So we've got about 84 odd species of birds of prey in South Africa, which is a lot. Obviously, they're not all occurring in the same areas. But if you look at the ones that potentially can take a chicken or a cat or a dog, it's such a small percentage. Unfortunately, and it comes down to sort of educating yourself on the different species that are out there, because what inevitably happens is people go hawk, eagle, bird of prey, and everything becomes a target.
Yes.
So what we're finding in particular is species like your African harrier hawk, your gymnogene. It's a bird with a very big body. It's got very big wings. So when you look at it on the wing, it looks as big as a crowned eagle, for example. But it's sort of, I shouldn't be quite rude about a species, but it's sort of a freak of nature in the sense that it's got this absolute tiny little pinhead and these minute, dainty little feet. So even though the body size is large, the tools that it uses for hunting are minute. So it will never physically be able to kill a cat or a dog. But they do get shot.
Yeah.
And see, that's where the problem lies. So in sort of the greater Durban area, your species that are likely to take pets is your crowned eagles, which we deal with a lot of pet conflict with them. And then the ones that are taking domestic poultry and stuff, yes, the crowned eagles too, but things like your black sparrowhawk, because it's the biggest sparrowhawk in the world, which I think is quite a tick in our book again. I'm like, wow, we've got the biggest in the world. But of course, the size means that it can take something like a sort of half-grown chicken. So just knowing that the only sort of culprits you need to keep an eye on are basically two species, it sort of brings the threat down a little bit.
It does. It really does. And are they targeting our pets?
No. So I know, again, you get these emotions run high, I should say. I wouldn't say emotional people, but emotions run high. And they like, pet owners or domestic poultry owners go, this thing is coming every single day and it's murdering and killing. And, so that's very much an emotional response. Birds of prey are not like that. First thing we've got to understand is they've got no concept of ownership. They don't keep pets of their own. It's literally only our species that's decided to take other animals and sort of keep them. So there's no concept of ownership. And of course, with these birds, there's no concept that like, I'm going to hurt a person's feeling or upset people, or there's none of that. They are purely opportunists. They keep territories. They fly around the territory. Today they may hunt a dove and eat it. Tomorrow they may catch a chicken and eat it. But for them, it's all the same. That is what is available in the area that they are living in.
So what is a normal diet, for example, of a crowned eagle?
Right, and it's not cats and dogs, despite what people think. So actually, there's been a lot of research done on crowned eagles with the Crowned Eagle Research Group, and particularly putting up cameras at nest sites and monitoring what adults are bringing through to the nest site. And what is interesting is that less than 7% of prey items were domestic at all. They were mostly chickens and a cat here and there. But if you consider what the rest of the diet is, they're actually hunting or catching pets and domestic poultry very, very minimally. Okay. So what they are surviving on in the Durban area, at least that we know of, is predominantly rock hyrax and hardy daws. They eat a lot of hardy daws. They eat a lot of hardy daw nestlings. Then, of course, monkeys feature because they are one of the monkey-eating eagle species. And then they also take small antelope. They will sometimes catch the odd genet or mongoose. So it's mostly mammals, but tardigrades, as I say, do feature quite high in the Durban area on the menu.
So what is actually happening when they are hunting, and when does it generally happen?
So your birds of prey are generally hunting first thing in the morning, because if they can find food, the rest of the day is just chill time. It's quite nice for them. They're like, okay, I've got a full crop, I'm going to sit here and digest it. I can actually just enjoy the day. So that's when they're hunting. If they don't catch anything in the morning, hunting in the heat of the day is very energy intensive. They get very hot, so they generally don't enjoy doing that. They will try again at sort of evening time, late afternoon, evening, and they're like, I really need to fill up before the night, because that's the longest period that they'll go without food. So dawn and dusk are your two sort of most dangerous times, if I can put it that way, that the birds are actually hunting at.
You look at me, I look at you, I see the love in your eyes.
Health you can see, love you can feel. Ultrapet, the science of love.
What can owners do if they have a small breed dog, they have chickens, they have cats that are in their garden? What can they do to minimize the risk?
So it comes down to, we always say this, and it's not a derogatory thing to say, but owning pets, pet ownership comes down to being the responsibility of the human. So trying to find ways to mitigate and protect pets is the way to go. So rather than saying birds are a problem, birds of prey, you must remove it. I mean, I can give you lots of reasons. We can maybe go into why that doesn't work. It comes down to, let me be aware of the threats. So, for example, where is my closest crowned eagle pair? And especially Durban area, they're very well documented. And don't leave, okay, I've got a small pet, I know there are crowned eagles in the area. So some of the things are, don't leave your small pet attended all day while there's no one at home. So take your cat out or dog out in the morning when you're getting ready, come home, take your dog for a walk in the afternoon, but try and contain your small pet during the day in an enclosed veranda, or you can build a catio or a nice kennel or something. It takes a bit of effort and it takes a bit of money, but at least during the day, your little pet is enclosed. So that is one way of doing it. The second thing is to get a bigger companion animal if you can, because even with your big birds of prey like your crowned eagle, it's kind of divided between things I can eat and things that will eat me. So they may look at a little Yorkie and go, well, that's something I can eat. But then it's got a booble as a companion and go, but that will eat me. So often just having a bigger companion animal will put the crowned eagle off coming down and hunting in the gardens. I know it's not always possible for people. With regards to cats, that's a difficult one, particularly because a lot of cat owners allow cats to wander free. We're all for trying to contain cats in areas like catios. And having said that, that's not a catio is a play on the word cat patio. It's a big area. And we're not talking about putting your cat in a tiny little box for the day. But to allow it an area, it can get sunshine, it can come out through a window and in again. And it's got multifunctional purposes, because it will protect your cat from being predated on. It'll protect all the small wildlife from your cat predating on it. Mm-hmm. And also it protects your cats from getting into fight with neighboring cats, the spread of diseases like your feline AIDS, getting hit by a car, getting bitten by a snake. There's a lot of good reasons to keep your cat safe. So those are some of the things that we advocate for pets. Livestock can be a little bit more challenging, but generally what we try and get people to do is, if they've got a smallish like flock of chickens or whatever, is to try and move them around so they're not always in the same place every day. So again, that's got a couple of benefits, because your chickens get sort of fresh areas to scratch and carry on, and you're not having rats attracted maybe to trying to burrow under a set chicken house. And also your crowned eagle is not going to arrive at a place and the chickens are not there and go, well, I'm just going to sit here and starve for the day. If you move the chickens around, the crowned eagle's going to arrive and go, oh, well, they're not here today. I'm going to move on and go hunt something else. So that's the solution. It's not always easy with big stock, But there it's getting to a point where try and keep them enclosed, especially at the sensitive times of the day.
What about covers and sort of tree cover? Because from my understanding, and again, I'm asking you, they need to be able to come in and pick them up and fly off. And if they don't have the ability to do that, so if you have got some cover so that the chickens can escape, whether it's bushes or shrubs, that is of benefit in terms of minimizing some of the risk.
That's going to be a yes and no answer. Absolutely. The more cover you have, the better for your chickens to run, escape, and hide. Absolutely. But having said that, some of the birds of prey will actually land, kill, and feed. So they don't necessarily grab and fly off with it. We had an instance where a crowned eagle was coming and actually taking puppies out of a breeding pen. And what happened is the bird had come down, had caught a puppy, was disturbed, took off and actually killed itself, hitting a crossbar across the top of the pen. So, wow. Even though the gentleman there was like, well, I've got a pen, this bird had still worked out how to actually come straight down into the pen to grab it. So, they're going to, unfortunately, they're fairly intelligent, birds of prey, and they're going to work out ways to do this. But having said it, yes, obviously more cover, not having your pet exposed where it can't escape, or your chicken exposed where it can't escape, covers better than not having anything, definitely.
Is it worth keeping a rooster?
For your smaller birds of prey, yes. So if you have a nice, robust, cheeky rooster and a black sparrowhawks, there's actually quite a few videos on the internet of a hawk trying to grab a hen, and then a rooster will run up and just give the hawk a what for, and this poor beaten up hawk will fly off. So in some cases, roosters are a good idea, but a rooster's not going to pose any kind of challenge to a crowned eagle. So it just depends on who your perpetrator is, basically.
I thought maybe the rooster would be the Boerboel to the Yorkshire Terrier. And keep a lookout.
Yes.
Okay. So we obviously are mindful of the fact that it's early mornings and evenings.
Yes.
Is there any benefit to just keeping them away or supervising them during those hours?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be the best thing to do. Most people advocating for early birds, but get up a little bit earlier. Take your dog out or sit out on the veranda where your cat is exploring the garden or whatever the case may be, so that your animals are free and allowed freedom but supervised. And the same thing if you come home in the evening, just spend a bit of time outdoors with your pet, and then try when you're not at home to have it in some kind of secure area. That is a way of doing it.
And I think even with the chickens, I'm very insistent that, we put them away. they need to go to bed.
Yes.
Obviously, you want them to have sort of natural, normal behavior. But the benefit of that, obviously, in the evenings is like moving them to a safe enclosure.
Well, the benefit of putting chickens away in the evening is also that they are not likely to become food for a genet, for example. So because there's a lot of little nocturnal predators that we find in our urban areas as well. So, yes. Pack your chickens away.
So you're obviously seeing some of the fallout as a result of accidents,
yes,
but also human behavior in trying to manage these situations themselves.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the kind of cases that you're seeing and the impact.
So some people resort to lethal methods of trying to control these things. So FreeMe does end up with a lot of wounded birds of prey coming in. And especially if it's an adult, you're upsetting the whole ecosystem, because what ends up happening is that birds of prey are very loyal to a territory. They're very loyal to a mate. So you remove one of them out, you've got a very distraught mate waiting back home. You've got an open territory, and you can end up causing a lot of conflict because a neighboring pair might take the advantage of the fact that now there's only one of the pair left and can actually attack the other one, take over a territory. So it's not a kind thing to do, because the impact is not just affecting that one animal that you're wanting to actually target. It's having a ripple effect in an ecosystem. The same thing with poisons, because people will go, well, I'll just put out a poison. You don't know who's going to feed on the poison. You might end up targeting a perfectly innocent animal in the process. The by-kill, because even if you've got your target individual, it may go and die somewhere else. Something else may come and feed on it. poisons don't just disappear in an environment. There's often bioaccumulation or breakdown into water sources. So the impact it's just like detonating a bomb and expecting there to be no collateral damage that happens with it. It's never just no collateral damage. So those kind of lethal things, they're not problem solvers. They're really not.
On these groups, there's a lot of talk about capturing them and relocating them, driving them a certain distance and then releasing them there. Talk about the problem that you have when people think that that's a solution.
So there's been a couple of interesting papers done on the homing instincts of big eagles. Nothing particularly on crowned eagles, but if you look at the correlation between that, the sky is these birds' limit, and there's nothing stopping them. You can drive them very, very far. They just go up, they thermal, they go, oh, yes, I can see the seas over there, and off they go again. So to try and expect to relocate something and it doesn't find its way back home is, you've been very, very wishful thinking in that case. It's different with juveniles because they don't hold territories yet. Sure, we've done quite successful relocations with juvenile birds of prey. Adults, they're determined to get back to their home, their mate, their territory. So relocation does not work, unfortunately.
And how often do you see injuries? So Wade spoke to us before about, trying to trap some of these cats and the damage that is done both, to their claws and their faces. Do you see the same kind of impact of people not using the right kind of materials and trapping them?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest problems with incorrect or bad trapping methods with birds of prey is breaking the primary feathers, so wing feathers and also tail feathers. It happens often as these birds try and struggle to get out of a trap. And the thing is, feathers can take up to a year to molt and grow out new ones. So now you sit with a bird during that you've got to hold during that time because now it can't fly properly. And it drops body condition, it drops fitness. So again, you're really putting it at a disadvantage to try and release it. So we use techniques like one that's called imping, which is actually taking feathers of the same species, obviously a deceased patient, for example. We keep the feathers, and then you just use a needle in the shaft to join two ends together. So it's basically like hair extensions, but feathers for birds. So those are some of the things we try and do, but the point is that the damage done is not just a case of, I can now take the bird over there and let it go. It's a case of, this thing's got to come into care. We've got to see what we can do for it. And they injure their faces a lot too, because obviously that's the part that they're always trying to get to see if there's a little hole or a gap they can get out. So they actually end up cutting the cere across the top of the beak, taking the top of the skin sometimes right off the head. So you're sitting with something where you're like, this is going to be now a long-term case.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's not nice.
With these kind of cases, you obviously get ones that you work very carefully with. When we heard about the sort of the process and sort of the decision making.
Yes.
But there are ones that require the tough decisions,
yes.
Which include euthanasia.
Yes.
How do you handle that?
So we try and be as balanced as possible. What we do at FreeMe Wildlife is professional science-based wildlife rehabilitation with a very strong emphasis on the conservation value of what we're doing. So whenever you look at a patient, you've got to say to yourself, is there conservation value in what we're doing? Can we put resources into this? Because the prognosis is going to be good. We've got a very, very good chance that we will get this bird of prey restored and back to where it belongs. But you've got to also be realistic, and this is where our vets are also important to look at. Certain injuries are not fixable. They're just not fixable. And there is no conservation value in taking that bird and sticking it in a cage for the rest of its life. It's a little bit different if you've got endangered species where they're already permitted registered breeding for release programs. Sure, then you can consider it. But for something else that's a common species, there's no facility available, where are you going to put it for the rest of its life? And what is the psychological effect going to be? Particularly if it's an adult, it's missing home, it's missing a mate, it knows what freedom's about. Now you stick it in a cage. And we must remember wildlife have no concept of captivity. For them, it's lifelong torture. So we make those decisions because of being balanced about it, but also ethically responsible.
And when you explain this to a person from the general public who's brought this animal to you, do you generally find that there's resistance or acceptance?
People go through, I think it's all of those emotions that people go through when they're dealing with loss. So first there's a terrible sense of grief. No, there can't be. Then you might get a bit of kickback and it's like, I thought you people cared about animals. Get the angry side coming out. But it's about being diplomatic and about explaining again and again and helping people to understand why, and that the long-term effect on the patient is what we're taking into account. Because that member of the public may walk out the door going, oh, I'm so glad, I feel better, it's going to be alive now. But that's not where the story ends for that patient. Being alive does not equate to quality of life. And that's what we've got to think of. So often when you talk through and you allow people just to work through the process themselves and you give them the space to be upset or be cross or whatever they need to get out, but you just consistently keep repeating why you make these decisions, most of them actually come around. They go, okay, it's not nice, it's not easy, but I actually do understand what you're saying now.
And do you generally get two types of people, those that come in wanting to help and those that come in wanting you to solve a problem and remove their problem?
Yes, so I think very much you're talking from a veterinary perspective there, and I think the experiences are pretty much the same. And absolutely, I think you've hit the nail on the head. You can split people into those two groups. People who actually are very avidly interested and invested in being helpful, and those that are not really interested in what the story is. You've just got to fix whatever they're unhappy about.
And, I mean, you obviously get people who have had the experience that their cat may have been carried off or dropped or injured by a bird of prey. Chickens, we know, like as the owner of chickens, you know that that's a risk.
Yes.
You obviously just don't want it to take out the whole flock.
Yes.
And you need to find solutions and be proactive about it. But the emotional sort of impact of having a bird of prey, do you find that when you are given the opportunity to discuss it and explain to owners of, say, that dog or small dog or cat, that they approach things in a different way, or do they remain very resentful of these birds?
I think overall the response is positive. And again, I think it comes down to having good people skills, because it's not like we don't care or feel sympathy for people. We understand that for them they've lost something that they're very, very attached to. And of course there's a lot of grieving and emotion that goes with it. So what we often do is allow people, tell us how terrible this bird is, tell us how gutted you are, how special your cat was, just to let that first come out. So we don't shy away from the emotional side of things. We're here to listen to the story. And then once we have allowed that person that space just to express their emotions, is to go to, right, how do we deal with this going forward? And over the many, many years we've dealt with these kind of things, we've actually put together a booklet, just because I sort of got tired of repeating the same thing year after year after year, because it happens every single year. So we put together a booklet. It's one of the things that we send out. But then we do discuss what is within that person's means to do. And so when they feel like you are actually invested in helping them find a solution, immediately you become a friend and not an enemy. And then from there, it's just also a lot of people understand that to go then and punish the wild animal on top of it is actually just escalating the tragedy, the number of deaths involved, and it actually doesn't solve the problem, because the space and the habitat for wildlife is shrinking. And so just taking, say, a crowned eagle out the ecosystem, there's a vacuum and another one's going to fill it. So you can't just keep killing birds. You can't kill this eagle and then next year that eagle, and that's not a solution. And that's a lot of sort of death and blood for a person to have on their hands. So
Absolutely.
So generally they go, right, let's see what can be done about it. And we've had some amazing successes, just because people, I'll see the number and I'm like, okay, let's hear what's happened now. But you're just there for them and you'll work through. I mean, one gentleman, he actually had the crowned eagles in the area coming and taking his little goats. And they obviously won't take a big goat. I mean, but they knew it's lambing season or whatever. Yeah, I think it's lambing season. And they go, okay, there's a food source. So we discussed how much his losses would account for. It's like, what is the value of what these birds could technically take out? And is it worth employing just old age shepherd like they used to do in the old days? And he was like, you know what? It's actually worth employing somebody. So he employed a shepherd. And it's just for that short period until those little kids are big enough that the eagles can't take them. And he phoned me months later and he said, you know what, this is working beautifully.
So there are solutions.
There are solutions, yes.
And maybe ones that you wouldn't have thought of yourself, but
Yes.
worth consulting with
Yes.
your organization.
Yes. Yeah, we're here to help.
Yeah. So we were discussing before about the risk of juveniles versus adults, particularly with pets.
Yes.
Is it true that the juvenile crowned eagles, for example, are more likely to take your pets than an adult?
Absolutely.
And why is that?
So it's all your juvenile birds of prey. So you're even more likely a juvenile black sparrowhawk to go for chickens than an adult. So with the crowned eagles, the research done on them showed it's like almost 90% your juvenile or your sub-adult birds that are taking domestic pets and livestock. And it's because life is very, very difficult for them after they leave parents' care. So basically they've had mom and dad looking after them, and mom and dad go, time, Junior, for you to move, and kick them out. And they suddenly got to survive on their own. And it's not that easy. So they've got a 70 to 80% mortality rate in that first year because most of them don't manage. So what happens is, even though what they've seen with parents bringing to the nest is natural food, as we'd call it, hardy-dars and rock hyraxes, and they recognize that as food, and they will go after that. If they can't catch these things, because just wildlife is so much more difficult, and there's this little creature over there barking at them that's, about the same size as a rock hyrax, they'll go, well, maybe that's edible. So it becomes easier to catch a pet because, let's face it, one of the reasons we like pets is because we've tamed them and become domesticated, and in a lot of ways we've dumbed them down. So their survival instincts are not that great. I mean, I was sent a picture of a crowned eagle up in a tree, a juvenile, and the Jack Russell on the lawn barking up at this bird. Just like, you're like, oh, that's crazy. That Jack Russell's clearly got no idea what danger it's in. But it is the youngsters, because it's just like, well, this thing is not running away from me. It's just sitting there and it's easy prey. So that's what ends up happening.
So often do they develop the skill, or does this then become habitual? It's just easy picking?
You know what? It's so variable. So we've had a case where one became what we call a confirmed stock killer. So that was it. Just decided eating pets and livestock is so much easier. Why go and hunt wild things? But the converse is also true. I mean, most of the youngsters that actually survive, so she was kind of the exception to the rule. Most of them that survive go on to try and remove themselves from the conflict that happens, because it's
a risk.
People screaming and other dogs barking, and it becomes so much quieter to go off and actually hunt natural prey. So once they learn how to take hardy-dars out the nest and how to catch a rock hyrax or a monkey, they actually prefer wild prey over pets.
Owls. Oh, okay. So my story goes that I still have on my notice board, which is where we put our list of things to shop for, I still have rat poison because I just don't ever purchase it.
Yes.
It's the truth. It sits on the list and I wipe it off and it goes back on. And I've tried to explain that I'm not going to be using rat poison, particularly because we have some owls, which is what a privilege. I mean, I'm delighted. What is the issue with that? Explain to my listeners what happens when they use poisons with intentions of taking away rodents, the impact on wildlife.
Well, firstly, I want to say in all the years that there's been this conflict with rats and using poisons, has we actually got rid of rats? No. So, but what it has done in certain areas is remove the owl population completely. So rat poisons in the long term don't actually work. You don't get rid of rodents. They're still everywhere. I mean, there's a joke that actually rats farm people. So, that's how many of them there are out there. So the other thing is there's so many different brands of rodenticides. Most of them are anticoagulants. Some are what you call your first generation, which are sort of less or more benign, if I can put it that way. It takes multiple doses. Then you get the second generations that came out because rats were developing resistance to the first generation. Those second generations are lethal. They're a single dose kill. Our species loves to invent poisons for everything. We're just unbelievable in that sense. But the point is that anytime you start to put a poison out, you are putting at risk the natural predators of the rats. So it's not just owls, it can be genets, it can be mongoose, it can be whatever actually predates on rodents that you're taking out. And the minute you take the predator out of the ecosystem, what you're actually doing is favoring rodents because now they don't even have a natural control measure that's there anymore. And the problem is that people often go, well, if you're using your multiple dose rodenticide, then there's a less risk. Well, no. I mean, owls hold a territory. And if they know there's a whole lot of sick rats over there, that's where they go hunt every evening. So it just builds up enough to actually kill them. And they're hunting more rodents during breeding season. They're taking them back to the nest. They're feeding the young. So it's not just adult owls that we've lost. We lose youngsters too because the parents have fed them poisoned rodent. And if that hasn't killed them, then just losing a parent means that there's not enough food being actually brought through to the nest, and so your whole clutch can die. So the knock-on effects again are just so awful in an ecosystem, and people don't realize the connections because you'll have the rat poison was put out, the local owls have been killed, and then they'll go, why are there so many sick bats this year? Well, because the predator that actually is responsible for keeping healthy balances in prey populations is now gone. So all these things that might be picking up diseases, there's nothing to take care of them either. So, that just upsets the whole apple cart completely. And how do you get rid of a poison? What do you do with unused rodenticide? You can't chuck it in the bin. You want to bury it in the soil. I mean, rodenticides have even leached into water systems and they've been picked up in fish. So it's just the most terrible thing actually to put out in the environment.
I think people also don't realize that, their domestic pets are also then massively at risk,
Yes.
If they have cats or dogs, I can't tell you how many cases that we get here. And often we only discover it at a point where there's very little you can do. And those are, sort of fatal cases. So, I mean, it's different if you put out and you see that that it's gone and the dog's eaten it and there's suspicion of it, we can be proactive about it. But it's, most of those, like you say, is when the population of owls are wiped out and people are going like we used to have, or when the pet's dead and they come in and say, well, we don't know why.
Yes.
Or very sick. So I think definitely that I need to try and get the message through at home as to why it's not being bought. But what are some of the solutions? Obviously I know if you have got rats, people are keen. They don't want to say, well, I'm going to rely on the owl population to deal with this. What can people do if they are determined to do it, but they don't want to do harm?
Yeah, so it does become tricky when your rats have taken up residence in buildings because it's not like the owl's going to knock on the door and come in to hunt the rats
particularly
in the house.
in roofs where people...
So we do understand where that's a problem. But all rat infestations, if I can put it that way, start because there are two things that are provided for rats, and that's shelter and food. It's as simple as that. No rat's going to live where it doesn't have a safe place to shelter in or where there's no food. So we look at what the attractants are in the first place and go, right, how do we work around this? Are they getting into the ceiling? Where are they getting into the ceiling? Do I have holes on the outside? In which case, you can remove the rat, but you might have a snake next time or a little monitor. It's just your house, your roof has now become a cave. That's what's happened. So to look at these spaces that these animals are getting into and prevent anything getting in, prevention is always better than cure. Then to look at where are they eating, what are they eating, where's the nearest water source? Because sometimes it can be a bird feeder or a bird bath in the garden. It can be you leave your dog food out overnight. It can be things like that. So if you remove the food, even temporarily, you actually force the rodents to go elsewhere to go and look for it. So we spoke about the chickens and just being able to have mobile coops that you can, on wheels, or you can pick up and move the whole thing. That stops rats getting in, because what happens a lot of times is the rats actually create a burrow system underneath the chicken house. It's very difficult to get them out once they're entrenched like that.
Absolutely.
So again, once we actually put together a booklet called Non-Toxic Rodent Control, just to try and put some ideas out to people on how to control this.
Yeah, try alternatives and see if it works for them.
I mean, of course, you get things like, I do not advocate for things like the sticky glue traps. I think they're immensely cruel. But you do get the walk-in, the live traps. You do get snap traps, which are also not always very accurate. But Good Nature in New Zealand has an amazing trap where you bait it, the rat goes up, and there's a bolt that comes out and hits the head and kills them very cleanly and very quickly. So if you take the time, again, it's people putting the time and effort into just going and doing a bit of research as to what is available that doesn't involve poisons. There are a couple of companies, even in South Africa, that are now promoting non-toxic ways of controlling them. So, but yes, to try and see what your attractants are and remove them first, that is the best prize.
First prize.
Yeah.
I see a lot of birds of prey, owls included, hit on the side of the road. What's happening there?
So roads make a nice hunting ground. And the reason is because of our own infrastructure, we've got fences and telephone poles and stuff like that on the side of roads. They make the most fantastic hunting perches to begin with. But also the road being an open area, little creatures, whether it's frogs or rats or insects, are crossing from one area where they're hidden in grass or whatever, it crosses just open area into the other side. It's amazing. The owl just has to sit there and watch stuff running across the road and, of course, goes down and catches it. And they're so focused when they go down and grab something that often by the time they realize there's a vehicle and they can't determine, because the vehicle's lights blind them, how far away this thing is, it's very difficult for them to get out the way in time.
It's awful.
Yeah.
They're a lot killed that way.
Yes. So with our owl admissions, so many of them are vehicle strikes. It's a big issue.
So if we want to encourage owls to become residents in our garden, a bit like people are keen to obviously feed birds,
yes,
it's real privilege. What can we do to set up things like owl boxes? And is that something that is a big no-no? And again, we need to not interfere, or is that encouraged?
So actually, FreeMe Wildlife do provide owl boxes, and we don't discourage it, because you're not going to encourage an increase in owls in an area. They're territorial. So even if you have an occupied owl box, putting up 6 in the same garden doesn't mean you're going to have 6 pairs of owls. You're going to have your pair that take up residence. So it's a good thing to have in urban areas, because one of the things that we tend to do is cut down any old trees that might have natural cavities that your owls go and nest in. So we're removing natural nest sites. The other thing is some species like spotted eagle owls will actually nest on the ground, and they're very vulnerable when they do that. So if you provide a nest that's a little bit off the ground, you're actually making it safer for them. So putting an owl box up can be a fun activity. But we always tell people it's not like a lighthouse. You don't have the owl going, oh, I heard there's an owl box over there, we're moving in. So to create the environment that would suit owls is the first step. Because even if you've got the most magnificent owl box, if there's lots of poison in the environment, or there's not enough food for them, or it's dangerous, there's lots of razor wire or stuff like that, you're still not going to get the owls there. So create the right environment, make sure there are no poisons, so that you have prey availability. And spotted eagle owls eat anything and everything, just about within size range. So if you create a nice, healthy ecosystem, your owls are going to move in. And once you hear them and you go, oh, we got owls, put the box up. That's the best way of doing it.
I mean, and there's a lot of research being done, isn't there, particularly because we are privileged to be in an area that has an abundance.
Yes.
You can get advice as to, what size owl box and the kind of substrate you would use inside them. Is that correct? So
Absolutely.
You can actually get advice as to try and increase the probability of them nesting.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, of course, we do that as well. We only to happy to hear that people have got owls breeding in their boxes. Makes us very excited. So yes, we'll help wherever we can. And I mean, one of the things you mentioned, how privileged we are, the Greater Durban area is immensely privileged. It's an incredibly biodiversely rich area. And one of the things is because of the DMOS system. So Durban's got all these natural systems around their river courses and things like that that support wildlife. So even though we're finding an increase in human-wildlife conflict, we've got to just take ourselves out and look at the bigger picture and go, what a privilege to live in an area that is so well developed and yet supports so much wildlife. We really are. It's one of the cities in the world with the best wildlife, well, the biodiversity in it. So we need to not take that for granted.
I think it's the reason why a lot of people enjoy living here.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I was interested to see whether you would advise, if you don't particularly like it, like go and find an area where, you're in the middle of the city where you're going to get less chance of that kind of conflict. Because, I mean, that's a reality that, one of the risks of living here is that. So...
Well, I mean, don't joke. I often think that. I'm like, and it's at nobody in particular, but it's like if you don't like creepy crawlies, you want a sterile environment, you don't want any spiders, you don't like these birds, you don't like those animals, then living in a biodiversity rich area is not actually the answer, because you can't go out into nature and then just wage war on nature. So in cases like that, if you are more comfortable in those kind of environments, please live somewhere that is like that. You can't just go out and expect habitat to change because you want a pretty view, but without anything. You want a green desert, basically. I mean, that's not how the world works. No way. Nature's messy, and it's interesting, and it's beautiful, active, and it's beautiful. But you've got to understand that you're going to be sharing that space with lots of other little life forms.
So, if you come across an injured bird of prey, how do you handle it? What's the best way so that you do not get injured and that you do not injure it? What is your advice to people?
So the first thing is to always tell people that the dangerous end of a bird of prey is actually the talons. Because often they think, is it going to bite me? Well, yeah, sure, it can bite you, but you don't want to be... The talons are the knives. That's what they actually kill with. And they got very, very strong tendons in their legs that actually lock into place. So you don't want this thing, sticking its talons and hanging off your arm type of thing. So be very, very careful of the legs. So what we advise people to do is rather take some, it depends on the size of the bird, of course, but take something like a blanket or a towel that you can chuck over the whole bird, bring whatever, like a box or whatever you're going to carry it in close, you bundle the whole bird up and just push it into the box. That is the easiest way to do it. Because if they can see you and you're trying to grab them, they're going to go into defensive posture, which is normally to throw themselves on their back and use their talons to strike out at you. But if you cover the whole bird and can't see what's going on, you're just taking away its ability to attack you, which I hate. It's not a nice word, but defend itself. Yes.
And is it important to keep them in the dark?
Yes.
So, and in terms of, sort of minimizing stress, is there a place like you would advise people put them in the car, or how proactive they are to sort of get it to a place where it's either a center like yours, but if you are far away, to a veterinary hospital or a place that is able to assist?
So with any injured animal, the sooner that you can get it actual veterinary help, the better. You're increasing its chances of survival. And I know some people are in remote areas, but what we encourage is to please phone. I mean, we've got a 24/7 emergency number. People can phone at any time, and some poor tired staff member will actually answer that phone and be able to give advice, because then we will explain to people what to do, how to keep that bird, dark, quiet, box, warm, whatever needs to be done. Don't give it water, don't try and feed it, all those kind of important things. And then speak to them about what is going to be the easiest way and quickest way to get it to us. Where's your nearest veterinary facility? If there isn't, is there a conservation body in the area? Is there a volunteer? But we will make a plan then to get that bird to the nearest place it can get help. It doesn't necessarily have to come through to us, but where's the closest place that bird can actually get help?
So if people are wanting to find out more, get hold of your information booklets, or just become a little bit more knowledgeable about birds of prey, where do they find these resources?
So they can find all our contact details on our website, freemewildlife.org. Everything is there. And they can just pick up the phone, give us a call, or just drop an email to the main email address that is there with their request. And we will be able to custom make the reply and send them what they need and just deal with them with whatever they're actually looking for information-wise. I'm happy to send the booklet over WhatsApp, over email, whatever the case is. I just need to know who is wanting it. Unfortunately, those resources aren't just available on the website because we prefer to engage with the person and just
tailor-make it, as you say.
Exactly. Yeah.
And sort of advise based on those circumstances,
Absolutely,
I'm sure.
Yes.
And you've got quite a big team. So in terms of this is not just one person dealing with an injured raptor. There is a setup, a lot of equipment, a lot of cost involved. If people want to financially support you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, there's so many ways that people can support. We encourage businesses to get involved as well, just from a corporate social responsibility side. Because we're a registered public benefit organisation, there's a huge kickback because they can claim back from tax for what they donate. So that's a win-win all round. Otherwise, individuals can get involved if it's not a financial contribution, because we've got a custodianship program. It gets newsletters. We keep in touch with people, but they can come in and volunteer. We take volunteers in. And it's not just about physically having people on the ground, but transport's really important. So, I mean, even if a person goes, I live in this area, I'm happy to bring stuff through to you, that's a huge help. Just having a network of responders is a big help. We have online courses. So, I mean, that obviously they pay for the course. So the benefit is the finances that come through. But if they're interested in wildlife and finding a bit more out, then the benefit to them is the learning side of it. We've got in-person courses. So everything's on the website, but there's so many ways people can actually think about supporting and getting involved and finding out more.
And benefiting both parties.
Yes, absolutely. We believe in value exchange.
Oh, it's incredible. Thank you for taking time out of your very, very busy day, particularly this time of year. I know that there is a lot of work and there's a lot of need. But I've really, really valued this conversation, and hopefully my listeners have really appreciated it too. We will put all the contact details in the notes and obviously provide those through social media. But it's been really informative. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been fun. Thank you so much for having
Tammy.
me.
Zena on your left now.
Hello.
All the time. She's looking exhausted. She's got no rest. She's got a catio. Just at the peak. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode on the Paws and Effect podcast. If you found the discussion helpful, please like, share, and follow our podcast. Don't forget to leave us a comment or review. We love hearing from our listeners. Remember, you can listen to us on your preferred podcast platform. Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Cara.
Hi, Doc. It's Jackson the Jack Rossi here, and boy, am I itchy.
Are you on a hypoallergenic diet?
Hyper what now?
Changing to a special diet will really help. And Just for Pets have a massive range. And flea and tick medication, special shampoo.
Ooh, how quick can you get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Get it all to your door.